Deal story time. Okay, I was asked a few weeks back, what is the most interesting deal that I've been a part of? That is a pretty easy question for me to answer. I have to go back, honestly, back to the beginning when I started in commercial real estate, 2003, fresh out of college, and I started cold calling. 100 to 120 cold calls a day. I knew nothing about the business. I really knew nothing about sales, but I was learning quickly. And I was making phone calls just to try and get my hands on anything. Any tenant that may be interested in moving, any owner of a building that is even curious about what the value of the property is. I'm just trying to set meetings with folks. At that point in my career, I was pretty heavily involved with the trainings that my company offered. And I remember at one of the trainings, the person leading the training challenged everybody in the room, hey, find 2 properties in your market that you want to transact at some point in your career. Well, that was easy. I picked a building in my market that was maybe like 150,000 feet, give or take, maybe 180. And it was a real ornate building. Like they just built it beautifully. I mean, ornate in the best possible way. There was this fountain in front that cost like $1.5 million to put in, with like waterfalls, and it rolled into the landscaping. I mean, it was an impressive property. We were fortunate enough to sell that property maybe 5 or 6 years into my career. The other property that I identified was like the big one. Like if there is in your market a major opportunity, or the big property that everybody knows about, that was this in my market. It was the center of our marketplace. It was a 65-acre property that was a manufacturing site for a major corporation. They had owned it and operated on it for like 65 years. So the odds of it transacting were pretty slim. Regardless, that was like the big opportunity that I was focused on. And so I was making calls to that company. Unfortunately, the real estate director for the owner of this property was not a fan of my company, just not a fan of CBRE. They had an agreement with another provider that did all of their real estate transactions, and that was pretty much locked up, and we had no way of getting in with this company. But because I was, ignorant, persistent, stubborn, whatever it is, I just kept calling on them. I finally got a meeting with one of the people in the real estate office, not the director of real estate, but somebody in the office there. So my partner, Ben, and I flew out to Atlanta last minute. We got some smoky motel room. It was like one of these $75 a night places. Reeked of cigarette smoke, but it was all we could get. Had a meeting with the person in the real estate office the next day. Good meeting, friendly person there. They heard what we had to say, and we came to that meeting with an idea. And the idea was, hey, you've got a 65-acre site. You're utilizing 60 or 70% of it. There's areas of the site that are not being used that you could potentially carve out and monetize by collecting rent on them. So somehow, some way, we convinced them to give us a listing on a 2.5-acre piece of the property, and we were marketing that. It was not an easy assignment, but we ended up leasing it to an RV storage operator to generate income for the company. Believe it or not, that was the first piece of business that our company had done with this potential new client. I'd like to say there was a straight line between that and transacting the sale of the 65 acres, but there wasn't. They were still controlled by a competitor of ours, but that real estate director was retiring. They had put an RFP out for real estate services. CBRE ended up winning the business, and as luck would have it, about 6 months after CBRE took over the business, they decided to sell this site in Fullerton that they had owned for the last 65 years. So with a healthy dose of being in the right place at the right time, our team was able to transact that sale. At the time, it was definitely one of the largest industrial sale transactions in Orange County. It was about a $200 million sale. The developer that bought it put 1.5 million square foot of building on the site. We ended up leasing that to 3 separate tenants, the largest of which was a company that took 1 million square feet in total. It was a lease that was valued at $300 million, which by total consideration was the most valuable lease ever signed in Orange County's industrial market. So a whole lot of lessons there. There's obvious reasons why it's my favorite, but you go from calling somebody, being persistent, getting your foot in the door, doing whatever it takes to get in front of them, transacting a really tough assignment to just keep yourself in front of a deal. And then you fast forward and all of a sudden you're selling and leasing $600 million worth of real estate on one site. Pretty epic. Probably going to be tough for me to beat that in my career, but I'll sure keep trying.